Hey gang, welcome to the Facts and Firearms channel. I'm Mas Ayub, your host. Tradition demands that I ask you to hit the like button, to subscribe, and to ring the bell so we can notify you of future content. As you can see here, I'm having a nostalgia trip. I'm an old guy with an old style gun, the Ruger GP100. Back in the day, this thing won me several state and regional shooting championships in high DPA stock service revolver. And it's kind of an old man teaching a lost art. But we're seeing a renaissance of interest in the revolver today for serious business. It's not a tidal wave, it's not a tsunami, but there's a definite wave of increased interest. The revolver's disadvantages and advantages about tally up equally with those of the semi-auto. And the question is, which of the features, which of the advantages are most important to you and your choice? The two disadvantages that strike most people who haven't had much time with the old six-shooter is the long, heavy trigger pull and the limited cartridge capacity, in this case, 6 rounds. The double action pull may just be more of a feature than a bug, and that's something we'll be discussing in a separate episode. Right now, let's talk about making up for the limited number of cartridges with rapid reloading. Your auto pistol should reload faster than the revolver simply because it's simpler to do so. You insert one large object into one large receptacle, press a lever or tug a slide, and you're back to business. The revolver, you got to get 6 little guys and 6 exact size holes all at once. And that becomes a little more dexterity intensive, and it demands technique, and it certainly demands practice. Let's start with the typical two-handed reload, assuming both your hands are available to you. You definitely want to go with the speed loader, though later on we'll discuss other lower profile options. The speed loaders really break down to 2 types. Those that release with a push, like the Safariland, this being the Comp 3, and those that release with a turning knob, this being the most popular speed loader, the HKS. The HKS has got to be the most durable if we're talking about something that's going to survive rattling around in an off-road vehicle on the glove box and constant vibration of motors, like in a patrol car or a farm vehicle. But of all the 3 sizes of the Safariland loaders, the big Comp 3 is, in my experience, by far the most reliable. People think, ooh, it's too big to carry concealed. Actually, no. When I shot for the various teams with the revolver, I used the revolver as my carry gun for that period, simply because it was one less gun to be responsible for on the trip, and I was confident with it. Being right-handed, I carried 1 speed loader here on the non-dominant side. It's going to take more practice for the less dexterous hand to get those 6 little guys in the 6 little holes, but it allows you to carry it behind the midline of the waistband. And behind lateral midline is really where the gun conceals, unless you've got a closed front garment. The holster that I usually used and often competed with was the one at the rear guard that I designed for Mitch Rosen back in the 1990s. Now, on this side, I carried another Comp 3 speed loader, this one with dummy rounds, of course, in the cell phone pocket of the BDUs. And you'll find those with any kind of cargo pants very handy for carrying these. I like to have one on each side in case I had to do a one-handed reload. The one-hand reload is something we'll discuss later down the road. We'll start with the two-handed reload for this episode, and for that, we'll go out now to the range. Okay, reloading the double-action revolver. There have been different techniques that have evolved over the years. The first that gained popularity and is still seen a lot today goes back to FBI in second quarter 20th century. The revolver would be handled like this. The cylinder's open. The 2 first fingers go through the cylinder window. The gun muzzle now comes up, and the thumb ejects the spent casings, hopefully to the ground. I'm just saving these for demonstration purposes. There was good news and bad news with that. It allowed this hand to already be going for the spare ammo while this one dumped the dead brass, and that was efficient, but it did have some shortcomings. One of them was that by the second quarter of, and certainly the final quarter of the 20th century, a lot more cops were carrying .357 Magnums, but until about 1970, they tended to practice with light .38 special ammunition. Now, that .38 special ammo, the cartridge casings were 1/10 of an inch shorter than the Magnum casings. And what would happen, a lot of dirt would build up in the chambers ahead of the .38 special casings, and eventually, if you shot long enough, a little bit of erosion. Those .38 special rounds at standard pressure were going off at 17,000 pounds per square inch pressure. Some of the light loads only 15,000. The .357 Magnums, however, were running at probably 35,000 pounds per square inch pressure, and we heard of some pressure tests where some loads were hitting 42,000. What happened there was the brass would fire form into the chambers, into that 1/10 of an inch ring ahead of where the .38 special casings had been, and lock up tight, and that thumb wouldn't have enough power to push those stuck rounds out of there. That ejector rod was sort of going like this to the user. Another problem you had with it was it brought the index finger in close proximity to the forcing cone of the barrel. That wasn't much of a problem with light .38 special loads, but when they started qualifying with Magnums and rapid fire, that heated up quick, and I saw a few people literally drop the revolver when they burned their hand. Finally, the revolver wound up being held like this, in about a 45-degree angle for the reload. That worked well in the 1940s and 50s with FBI agents and other officers who were loading 1 or 2 cartridges at a time and snapping them in with their thumbs. By the 70s, we had speed loaders. Speed loaders worked with gravity, and gravity's not at its best at a 45-degree angle. To get the muzzle down for a clean gravity drop of the ammunition, you had to either put yourself partway into a Kodagaish wrist lock or bend over and take your eyes off the threat, and it was an unnatural movement. The next that came along, recognizing those shortcomings, was the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center reload. The cylinder would open the same way, and the officer would turn the muzzle up and come up with this hand and strike with a hard, sharp slap. It was much more powerful, and it was much more effective in getting stuck casings out, but it also had its own problems. The fingertips were away from the forcing cone now, but the hand still was at an awkward angle for accepting fresh cartridges during the reload. Finally, if you look here, you'll see the hand grasping here. The knuckle tended to block part of the ejector stroke, and it wasn't always a full ejector stroke. That was particularly critical with the off-duty and backup guns, the little short barrel Smith & Wessons with the very short ejector rods. So the technique I came up with in the 70s that we called the Stressfire reload was this. Open the cylinder, rotate the gun back into the hand. I like to get the web of the hand right up into the hammer spur. That allowed the thumb to be holding the cylinder out to make sure that a partial opening of the cylinder didn't cause some cartridges or the extractor itself to be blocked. With the muzzle straight up, one sharp slap with the left hand, guided, assuming a right-handed shooter, guided by the barrel. One problem we had with the FLETC reload was if the hand came in at an angle, you could start bending the ejector rod if strong men were hitting it hard. Here, guaranteed straight back, no bending. Now the thumb's holding the cylinder out, so we get a clean ejection. Now the thumb comes in like this. We're around the cylinder, and the palm is almost under the trigger guard. Now bring the butt to the belly, and the gun is straight down. So we've got a clean gravity drop with the speed loader, and we've got a felt index. Hand finds hand. And we found it worked way faster, particularly with speed loaders, but also with loose cartridges. Done at speed, it would look like it was reasonably fast, and most important, it was positive. And when you have to choose between reliability, positivity, and speed, reliability and positivity is the direction where we recommend that you go. Whichever loader you choose and whichever technique, you're going to want to practice with it. This is a dexterity-intensive operation, It's a complex psychomotor skill, a chain of events that each link has to be accomplished correctly or the whole chain of events breaks. The dummy rounds will be very helpful for you with that. You'll find if you're carrying a small revolver with 38 wad cutters, which has become very trendy and recommended now by many of the wound ballistics authorities, they're being completely flat at the case mouth. They're the toughest to reload with. So for your reload, I'd recommend something like these critical defense loads from Hornady, which being pointy, just slip right in for you. Do some practice. We'll have for you shortly an episode on one-hand-only reloads with either hand. And we've got a lot more coming down the road. We hope you'll stay tuned for more content from Facts and Firearms.